Now moving into my favorite genre, and another one that we have a lot of opinions for, alternative slash indie slash rock. We'll do all three together because they all intertwine together in that way. And anyways,
especially
I
right
don't want
now.
to. It's super right now, and I don't feel like sitting here for 28 hours doing a fucking GRE. Except I need to wear a bow tie now and speak with lobsters in my mouth or some shit. Pause. Anyways,
We would have so many if we actually did a style podcast like that. We have so many like disclaimers on every like platform we're
oh
on.
God, the amount of disclaimers we'd have to put on that because I'm not holding my mouth for 4 hours. Um,
Yeah, hour two, you're gonna get some real Sean and Dan here.
hour two. It's just at that point, it just ends up being what we our text conversations and stuff, or emails.
Okay, emails. Okay, but yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, we love our alternative Indian rock here,
we
but
do.
I
There's
mean, other than indie and a little bit more recently with indie, it's been a troubled area of music recently. We had our like big rock is dead conversation from State of Music a couple years back, and at the end of that, Sean's point was that rock is dead, indie will save it, and that's largely come true.
And that has very much come true. You have some artists that have actually made very, very good rock albums. The past year, my favorite one being The War on Drugs. Their record was fucking incredible. So you have these some rock artists and whatnot. It'll be interesting to hear this year because you have like Red Hot Chili Peppers coming out with the record. You have The Smile, which is Johnny Greenwood, Tom York, and Dan Skinner on drums. A little three-piece band coming out later on. You have Arctic Monkeys, which is that cross between alternative and rock. So it'll be interesting to see what they put out and how that reception goes of those releases to hear how that goes. But within that, with last year and the year before, you had indie really, really save rock in the way that it was produced and whatnot. You had example, you had Doves, you had Foles, you had War on Drugs, where they had so many influences from indie and from other things within alternative scenes and whatnot that were then picked from other scenes naturally because that's where they got the ideas from in the first place. Then get into rock, and that's what really saved the genre. Now there's a lot of it. You have idols, you have a couple other bands and stuff that I just can't think of off the top of my head that have made good records now.
Not to
Last year,
mention the
tail end of last year and
individuals,
stuff.
like, and the
Yeah.
individual women especially. Like we've talked about women in indie killing it from the top to the bottom, from your like
Oh yeah.
Fiona Apples all the way down to Sophia Valdez. Like there's
Yeah, I
some
mean, women in indie, because I was talking more about rock, but the women in indie are so important. They're the ones that are really, really holding up the genre to a new degree. They're the ones that are pushing it forward, that are experimenting, that are really making it have a specific sound, right? Like you had Snail Mail come out with a record that we both really like. You had B2B, who we both adore and whatnot on this podcast. You have Phoebe Bridgers, a couple others that are they make indie sound like indie, right? Like when you think indie, that's who immediately you think of. You think of these female artists that are really killing it. But within there, a lot of these other artists and whatnot can take that sound or take the ideas from that and then, implement it into their own ways. What I don't want is for indie to get stagnant, which is my big fear this year. Is I hear a lot of because my main genre I listen to. I hear a lot of indies getting stuck in a trope of late 2010s, early sound of 2020, 2021, like early-ish, and I see it more getting recycled about. And I don't want that. I want them to take the influences that those artists that they're copying from had at that time and to even implement it more into even, oh, sorry, not implement it, but to improve upon it more and to do with more that they have because there's so many ideas and whatnot that rock has done, actually, ironically. So within like my state, the music industry, I think actually rock is in a very good place for the first time in a long time. And we saw that like there's a lot of rock albums last year that we really like. Like if I go back to our Google Drive, let me do this real quick on the fly because this is how we fucking do this podcast. We're doing it live. Fuck it. But if we go to the awards show, and you go to like the rock category, like let's go Return to Form, Best Pop, Best Neo Pop, Song of the Year. Goddamn, the holy shit, this thing is wild. I forgot how crazy it is. But like example, like you had Wolf Alice, Idols, Django Django, War on Drugs, Killers. Those albums and whatnot for rock have really surprised me in how well they did, how well they were received, how well we both liked them and whatnot. And within that, it's actually at a steady place for the first time, I think, in close to a decade, I'd like to say. And it was saved by indie. But now, ironically, I think indie needs saving from itself. I think indie has a specific sound, it has a place to be, but now it needs to even do more of what they have. They've had so much of an influence in music and pop and neo pop and rock, even in EDM, that now, unfortunately, with all of those influences, since so many people now are kind of making the sounds, they now have to almost reinvert their sounds and reinvent some of themselves, so that way they don't get stagnant. And that's what I worry, is that because of how much success that they've had and how many sound influences and whatnot. Like example, a lot of the '80s beats and '80s sounds you got from pop originally really came, obviously from the '80s naturally, but really originally really came from the indie scene. You got your Neon Indians, your Tori Amos of the world. Your and those beats got influenced and then popped up, and now like they changed their sound. I mean, Tori Amos always does completely different sounds. Neon Indian's going to release an album this year, and be interesting to see how that sounds as well. And that indie is gonna have to make a pivot away from that like bedroom pop sound, from that '90s grunge sound, and now they're gonna have to really find a different thing, so that way they don't get stagnant. You are muted, good sir.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. Thank you. I need to jump in there because there's so much of that was like really good that I agreed with. But that's my camera. But the so much of indie right now, like indie is the darling of the ball, so to speak, right? Like I've talked about how much I like electronic in rap music, but indie and rap music has really been hidden lately. But I'm so worried about the same thing as well, as the stagnation of indie music and no longer it being able to push and renegade all the other genres forward, doing the work the other genres aren't doing, of being a little bit different, right? And so I think that thankfully I'm weirdly optimistic about this, that indie music is better equipped than pretty much any other genre to reinvent itself, to push other boundaries and do other different things. Just because we review all the other genres every single week, other than maybe folk, I'd say, which I'll say that right now. I think folk could be a really interesting angle for indie right now, because it's just having a moment where it's doing the thing where it's pulling from other genres to make itself more interesting and to bring more fans into it.
Example, I think Big Red Machine is a great example of folk that can twist Americana, that can twist '80s beats and other things too, and
Big
make it
Thief
an album.
also.
That Big Thief is another one too. That like within that example, yeah, we got Big Red Machine to tail end last year, Big Thief 2 weeks ago. Example, those
Waxahachie, I would say to some extent. Reviewed her a while ago, but yeah.
Those you could do a lot with. Yeah, there's a lot of different sounds in there. Like example, I fucking hate country with passion, but I thought that with Big Thief, some of the things that they made, I was like, oh, well, this is actually a very interesting sound that I haven't heard, that I'm really actually like, that you can pull from, and within that, then you could do so many different sounds within that. So I think, Dan, you're really right on that, nailed it on the ball. I also agree with you that out of all genres, I have the most hope for indie in that way. I just don't want them to be stagnant, but I have faith that they can do that pivot, that they can make that sound adjustment, well, not because they always have.
Definitely. And yeah, I want definitely indie artists to branch out from bedroom pop. It's a good place to start, but find new places, find new ways to inspire and enchant your audience, truly. Get them to fall in love with the genre all over again by giving them stuff that isn't cookie cutter. And unfortunately, bedroom pop is starting to become cookie cutter, because everyone who's like getting there into the mix of indie, because that's the cool thing, is like starting to do that now. And so there's so much talent out there. There's so much like good brain space out there. Push that forward.